I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement for one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's no big deal, just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of college after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed college graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted both by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided that last minute they really wanted a girl. So my parents were on a wedding list, got a call in the middle of the night asking we've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him? They said, of course. My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college, but I never chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford, and all my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was spending all of the money my parents had saved their entire life. I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me, began dropping around the ones that looked interesting. It wasn't romantic. I didn't have a dorm room. I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposit to buy food with, and I would walk to several miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal work at the Haro Kursuna Temple. I loved it, and much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Lit College at the time offered the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans-serif typefaces, about bounding the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically studied in a way that science can capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on the single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportional space fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on the calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college. It was very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut destiny, life, karma, and whatever that. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the wrong path, and that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I love to do early in life. Wasn't I started after my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just a professional garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30, and then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started with? As after girl, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went to work, but then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board director started with him, and so at 30, I was out very publicly. What had been the focus of my entire order was gone. It was devastating. I really didn't know what to do. For a few months, I felt that I let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down. That I dropped the baton as it was being passed me. I met with David Packer and Bob Lewis and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the barrier, but something slowly began to dawn on me. I still love what I did. The ton of events that happened not changed them one bit. I've been rejected, but I was still in love, and so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting far from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The happiness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Less sure about everything, it brought me to one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with the amazing Uma who became my wife. Pixar wanted to create the world's first computer animated feature film Toy Story, and it's now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed next is at the heart of Abraham Renaissance. And Rin and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from rapper. It was offered tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's gonna hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that can be going was that I love what I did. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for your work as it is for your lovers. Your work is gonna fill a larger part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking. Don't settle. My third story is about death. When I was 17, I wrote a comment something like, if you live today as if it was your last Sunday, you will most certainly be right. It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remember that RB Destiny is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life, because almost everything, or strong expectations, or pride, or fear of embarrassment, or failure, these things just fall away in a face of death, leaving only what's truly important. Remember that you're going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trouble thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost the only type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 36 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try to tell your kids everything you have done. You have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. I live with the diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas, and got a few stitches from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctor started crying because it turned out to be very low form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery, and thankfully I'm fine now. This was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty, when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there, and yet death is destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it, and that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best mission of life. It's a life-changing agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you, but someday not long from now, you'll gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste living someone else's life. Don't be tricked by dogma, which is living with the result of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called The Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bibles of my generation. It was created by a fellow named Shortbrain, not far from here in Menlo Park. And in particular with this particular, this was in the late 60s before personal computers and desktop publishing. So it was all made with type audio scissors and Polaroid cameras. It was sort of like Googling paperback phone 35 years before Google came along. It was idealistic and overflowing with new tools and great notions. Stuart and his team put out several issues of the Whole Earth Catalog, and then when it had run its course, they put out a final issue. It was the mid 1970s, and I was age. On the back cover of the front issue was a photograph of an early morning country with the kind you might find yourself very checking. If you also it's adventurous, beneath it were the words "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their favorite message as this end of as "Stay hungry, stay foolish." And I have always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to figure out, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you very much. 8분 컷. 잠깐 보자. 14분을 8분 컷 했으면은 14분을 8분 컷. 몇 배속이냐? 계산이 안 되네. 7 6 이 간단한 계산이 안 돼. 잠깐만. 계산한다. 8분 14분을 8분 컷 했어. (7, 8, 56) 이거 계산하는데 이렇게 오래 걸렸나? 1.75배속 1.75배속으로 2배속은 좀 어려울 것 같고 1.8배속까지는 해볼 수 있을 것 같다. 1.9배속. 아무튼 이렇게 간단하게 읽었고요. 8분 컷으로 딱 끝냈죠. 빨리 끝내는 게 나아. 대충 해도 계속 하고 조금씩 큰 부분을 한꺼번에 하려고 하지 말고 대충 하고 그 다음에 일부분을 좀 자세히, 또 다른 일부분을 자세히, 또 다른 일부분을 자세히, 그 자세한 부분이 전체가 되잖아. 그러면은 그 전체를 이제 자세히 할 수 있는 힘이 생기는 거지. 그때가 되면은 시간도 줄어들고 훨씬 힘이 덜 들어. 왜냐면은 처음부터 이게 전체를 완벽히 하려고 하면은 엄두가 안 나니까. 왜냐면은 처음이니까 그걸 어떻게 다 소화를 해. 소화를 할 능력이 안 되는데 과분한 짓을 하려고 하는 거지. 그러니까 시작은 가볍게 대충대충, 그리고 가면서 점점 완벽을 기하기. 오케이, 오늘 자기암시랑 스탠포드 이거 끝. 이렇게 대충 해도 끝.